Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and a very warm welcome to the Red and Blue Review. I am your host. Once again, my name is Nick Philpott. I trust you are all well out in Facebook land. Joining me this evening, you'll see on your screen shortly, Tim Richards down in New Zealand. Timothy, good evening, sir.
Morning, sir.
Good morning to you. Oh, yeah, good morning to you. Ian Noble, and our now staple on the show. Mr. Noble, I hope you're well.
Good evening, Nick. Yes, I'm very well. And yourself?
Yeah, I'm good, man. Thank you. I'm good.
Good. Pleased to hear it.
Shame about the result, but we'll come on to that later. And making his debut this evening, a virgin, ladies and gentlemen, we have a Red and Blue Review virgin, Steve Mason. Steve, good evening and welcome to the Red and Blue Review, mate. How are you?
Very well. Good evening, chaps, and good morning to you, Tim.
Right, mate. How's it going?
Very well, very well. How are we all doing this evening in Facebook land? Welcome all.
Yeah, good. So loads of people watching already. I can see you out there now. Georgia Wagwu, John Knox, James Garlick, I can see him. Mr. Montgomery, I hope you're well. Mr. Chatterjee, lots of you out there. Thank you for joining us this evening. So coming up on this evening's show, we're going to be finding out a little bit more about our Steve and welcoming him to the team. We're going to be talking about the other teams within the Palace family, the 23s, the 18s and the ladies. We're going to be talking about the remaining fixtures and the social media blackout from this weekend. But don't forget, you can always find us. Just simply ask for your favourite podcast provider to play the latest Red and Blue Review podcast, and it will pop up. You can find us on YouTube, and just go to our website, redandbluereview.co.uk, and you will find us and every single one of our previous podcasts that these guys have done in the past. And welcome one and all. Boys, where should we kick off? Steve, I'm going to come to you first, if you don't mind, as the newbie, as a very warm welcome. First of all, tell everybody out in Facebook land about your Palace history, your supporting history.
Well, I mean, the one thing that would sum it up from sort of start to current is the roller coaster, really. What I do remember is my very best friend growing up when I was not even a teenager. Good friend of mine, Tommy Morrison, he's a family member of his, was connected with Palace and got me tickets when I was living in West Wickham. Very first game I went to was Oxford United, I believe it was, and we won 2-1. From then, nothing else has come close to it, really. And over the years, I managed to get to many games. We'll touch on a couple of subjects a bit later, but I think for me, where a bit of my downfall on some of the subjects that we're coming to later started was due to me getting into debt, travelling the country, watching Palace. I remember going to Sheffield United away, which was a brilliant away day. I think it was Jamie Smith who scored 2 goals for us that day. Many games, like I say, home and away. But lately, obviously, things have been difficult. When you grow up, you've got to stop going to football and work commitments, etc. So I've only managed to get to a couple of games for the last sort of 5-6 seasons, or a couple of games a season, I should say. But even though I don't get to the games, I still follow every week, watching all the highlights and getting as much news as I can as possible, and enjoying the roller coaster. Although it hasn't really been a roller coaster for us of late, since being in the Premier League especially. But I'm going to say an emotional roller coaster with what's happening with the team, and I'm going to say what's imploding at the moment, or what seems to be imploding with thoughts and stuff like that. But we'll touch on that later.
Indeed. I mean, as far as the season's concerned, you quite often think of it as a roller coaster, or think about one of the heart monitors that go up and down, up and down. I think it just seems to me as though we've flatlined for the last, 3 months. And I think, I'm speaking on your behalf, guys, but I think people are now waiting for the end of the season to see what goes on. Anyway, Steve, last week or the week before last, whenever we last did a live show, you contacted me after the show to tell me about a new venture that you're about to get underway. Tell everybody about that.
Yeah, so it's say early doors is an understatement. I haven't actually recorded yet. My plans are for tomorrow to start doing a little bit of recording. I'm looking at starting a YouTube channel. I've just simply called it Sports Vlogger. I'm looking at doing that to kind of help me with some personal issues that I've been sort of struggling with over the last, I want to say last sort of 5-6 years really, but things have taken a bit of a turn over the last 2 to 3 years, and I'm trying to find ways to sort of occupy myself. And it was a few weeks ago where I decided, you know what, due to health issues recently, I've got kidney stones, but it's worse than it has been in the previous 5 occasions I've had it. But when you get let go from work because of illness, and you sort of sitting at home doing nothing, things just start playing in your mind, and you go to a place where a lot of people, especially with lockdown, have been struggling with. So with some issues over the last few years, I thought, you know what, I took a bit of reflection time, and I thought, you know, what do I like doing and what are my interests? Ultimately, I like talking, and I like sports. So I thought, you know what, I don't know what the channel can become. A couple of people that have mentioned it have said, look, you know, you're not going to make money off of it. You're not going to do this and not going to do that. Quite frankly, I don't care about the money side of it. Just because I'm doing a YouTube channel doesn't mean I'm doing it for money. I'm doing it because I like talking about sports. So I want to create something with, you know, content like if I can get interviews, have discussions, you know, put out opinions, kind of like what we're doing with the Red and Blue News or the Red and Blue Review. That's been going on for years, but doing it across all sports, you know, hitting topics and just having a general opinions and discussions and just putting it out there for people. If it gets traction and the content goes well, then brilliant. But for me, it's about keeping myself occupied and putting my mind in a mindset where I'm doing stuff that I like to do that's not going to cause me problems and not going to make me fall back to, I'm going to say, my old ways. Things have been tough over the last few years, and this is something that's actually got me excited and, you know, and looking to keep me on the straight and narrow.
So what's it? It'd be a remiss of me not to ask you what the channel's going to be called. Where can they find you?
Please, sports vlogger. That's it.
sports vlogger on YouTube, yeah?
Yeah, that's what it's going to be.
I'm surprised the name's not gone already, Steve. I thought that would have been a very, very popular name.
Well, I've got the domain name.
Very good.
And the email address, yeah. I tried to put the sports vlogger, and that didn't happen. That was already taken. And then I took out the, and as I went to put something else like a hyphen, it just come up on GoDaddy's website that it was available. So I was like, you know, I'll take that then.
Good luck.
But
fantastic, fancy. So
yeah.
You and I have had an interchange in the past, and I know you've spoken to, you had an interchange with Tim as well in New Zealand.
Right.
You highlighted a minute ago some difficulties. Do you want to elaborate on that? You don't have to. Don't feel free.
Yeah, you know, it's all, I'd say, all part of therapy, isn't it? But no, look, mental health is. I hate band. Well, no, I don't hate banding it around. That'd be a wrong thing to say. It'd be derogatory. A lot has been made about mental health, as you all know, especially during lockdown. But actually, mental health, especially within men and sports, is actually was gathering, I'm going to say, significant pace prior to lockdown. And obviously, everything else has sort of been intensified. And, you know, over the last, I'm going to say 2.5 to 3 years ago, things were really becoming a problem for myself, having problems at home, addictions, and, you know, all sorts of issues, you know, in general life, which ended up causing me to lose jobs. At one point, I ended up losing not only my job, but my partner, my kids, ended up going into a hostel. And if anyone's ever lived in a hostel, it's a dark, dark place. You know, not that I'm better than anyone else, but when you actually when you actually go and live in a hostel, especially when you're there for a year and you see the type of people that you're sort of living with, and it's just such an awful, dark place where you just don't even want to get out of bed in the morning. You wake up and think, what's the point? And I don't want to be one of these people that are like, oh, well, I thought of, you know, doing this and ending my life. And, you know, there has been times when I've got to that place, not that I've ever acted on it, but life's just been, I'm going to say, detrimental to my own problems. And probably, you know, I've caused the problems without saying. But yeah, things have been mightily difficult. But over the last year, just before lockdown or just at lockdown, things were starting to get a little bit better. I got back with the missus, you know, the family home's good. And although we're working through our difficulties, things are starting to take a bit of an upturn. But then recently I fell back a little bit because I got ill and spending time in hospital. And when you come out, I ended up losing my job. And it's because I was within my probationary period and things just got really, really difficult. So instead of doing what I normally do and revert back to the default setting of being stupid, I thought, you know what, I rolled up my sleeves and thought, what am I going to do to get myself out of it? So whilst doing Zoom meetings, I don't know if there's any people out there that will admit to having addiction problems, whether gambling or narcotics or whatever the case may be. But all I can say is, there's lots of help out there if you actually want it. And some of that help that I've been given and that I've sought is starting to work for me. So as well as doing what I'm looking to do.
If you don't mind, I'm going to say how brave it was for you to reach out, okay? How brave it was for you to talk to Tim. And I know you and I have had a couple of conversations about it. So well done. And listen, if nothing else comes out of the Red and Blue Review in my tenure of hosting Red and Blue Review, I just wish you well. And I'm glad that something has come for you. And you're clearly the most positive of people, okay? Yes, you were in a bad place, but you pulled yourself out of it. Not me, not Tim, not anybody else. You and your family have worked together, and do you know what? All credits here.
I think the message. I apologize to cut you off there, Nick, but I think the simple answer is to anybody that's facing any form of issues or mental health issues. Yes, there's an awful lot of help out there, but the only people that can actually get themselves out of it is themselves. I know it's a hard thing to say, but you do have to start the cogs moving yourself. Nobody's going to knock on your front door and ask if you're okay. And I know it sounds really silly, but I'm a massive fan of a TV program that was aired like more than 10 years ago, a TV series called Prison Break. And there was one particular character who was a doctor. Her name is Dr. Sarah Tancredi. And the most prominent line that I remembered through all of the 5 seasons that they did was her line when she had come to a situation where she had done something really stupid. But she basically turned around and said, the blame belongs in your own backyard. And there's no truer saying, and it's not in a negative way. It's got to be perceived in a positive way. You've got to understand that a lot of issues that have happened, not in every case, but if you want to do something about it, you've got to do it yourself. Nobody's going to do it for you.
Well done, mate. And I think it just echoes what we've always said on the show. Mental health, or especially men's mental health, is something that is very dear to our hearts on the show. Okay, do what Steve did. Reach out to any of us. Okay, we're not experts, but we're here to talk. And Steve is definitely, and Tim, they're both living, breathing examples of that. So I think thank you for your honesty and thank you for filling everybody in on it. I think we're going to move it on if you don't mind, boys.
Yeah, let's go.
Ian, I want you to, I'd like you, if you would be so kind, to give us an overview of the social media blackout this weekend, because everybody will be aware that us, along with all the other news outlets and Palace stuff, we went off air on purpose at the weekend.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. It was a strange weekend, wasn't it? I think if you took part in the social media blackout, if you're like me, I don't think I'm quite addicted to social media, but I do enjoy it, and I'm on it an awful lot, especially Twitter, and a bit of Facebook, possibly a little bit of Instagram here and there. But I made a conscious decision that I would join in from 3 p.m. on Friday afternoon until, for me, this morning, because I wasn't staying up till just gone midnight just to send a tweet. But it was covered very well, I thought, by BT Sport on the build-up to the game on Saturday. You know, I don't often watch a build-up to a game, but because I wasn't on social media, and I thought I'll sit there from 11:30 and watch the build-up, and it was obviously more about City than Palace, as it was inevitably going to be. But they covered the social media boycott quite well, I thought. And they had a lady on there that is part of a charity, and forgive me, I can't remember her name or any details. Maybe I should have written that down. Who was very articulate and talking to the studio guests, which were, I think, Lescott and JJ, in the ground. And they were saying the social media boycott was there to bring attention to abuse online, not just racial abuse, which we all hate and, we can't abide it, but any kind of abuse online. Now, I remember I was abused a little bit by a few West Ham fans because I had a little pop at them and they started taking the piss out of me online. And it wasn't just one of them, but 2 or 3 of them were all chipping in and making comments. And they weren't bad comments, but I thought, you know what, I don't need this. And I just ditched the conversation, blocked them. But if you multiply that by 100 times, people can be forced into a bad place because of abuse online. People hide behind the keyboards and their phones and things, and it's a real problem apparently. So much so that's why the social media boycott happened for those times between Friday at 3 p.m. until midnight last night. And if it can just do a little bit of good to bring people's awareness to it, I think it's a good thing. And they say don't just walk past it. If you see people abusing someone else online, give that person a positive comment and then report the person that's made the abuse. So through social media platforms, you can report posts or block people and all the rest of it. So I think it's really important that we take that kind of action ourselves and not just walk past it and think, oh, it's going to be someone else's problem.
Absolutely right. And Steve, in case you're not aware, I don't know if you can see it from your end, make sure at the end of the show you go back and read these comments. A big, massive support coming through to you.
I've been noticing a lot of them coming through, and thank you all. I don't want to cut over anyone. There's a lot of positivity there, so thank you all. It's it's really, really good.
Oh, Nick.
Oh, he's gone.
I was going to say, did he freeze off?
He's gone.
Let's look at my internet then.
Shall we talk about the game? Shall we talk about the game while he's not there? We can touch on that.
It won't take long, will it?
Yeah. So, did you both watch the game, Steve and Tim?
Well, I watched about 70, 75 minutes of it. To be honest, I actually didn't think it was that bad in the first half, to be honest. I thought the first half display, albeit, yes, it was 0-0. Normally, when you put on Palace, I remember reverting back a good few weeks ago against Brighton, and you just looked, and I actually didn't want Benteke to score that goal. I wanted us to lose. I wanted us to concede, so hopefully they'd get rid of Roy.
No, that's not a good thing to wish for. But.
No, true. But then I was jumping off the chair when it did actually hit the back of the net, so it's a positive. But, I was expecting kind of what you expect against Man City. You're going to expect backs against the wall. You're going to just be an onslaught. And I felt another Liverpool, 6-7 goals could, go in. But actually the first half, actually, I thought we didn't play too badly at all, given what we was up against. And in the second half, once the first goal went in and then the second one straight away, you're like, oh, here we go again. But actually, to keep it 2-0, I didn't think the second half display was as good. But again, you're going to tire physically and mentally against a team like City, who are going all guns blazing. So
I think that was partly to do with the fact that City upped their game after the break. I mean, Pep, you could see he was not happy with going in at 0-0, and therefore they upped their game. I think if we look at the stats in the first half, we had 6 shots in the first half to their 5. And we had 2 on target, and they had none on target. Tim, did you watch the game in New Zealand?
Yeah, I watched the first half and caught bits of the second half. I agree with everything that's been said. The thing that struck me the most was quite early on, as we've been saying for I don't know how many eons now. You had Starman on the right, and in the first 10 minutes, wicked cross in for Benteke, who should have scored and just fluffed the header. Well, this is what this is the whole point. You need to get crosses into him, and it was a great cross by Andros, wasn't it? It really was, and I love it when he plays on the right and he puts it back on his left foot and whips it in. It's such a dangerous ball, and I don't understand why we don't do it more often. I know he's competing for his place and all the rest of it, but I thought he played very well, Townsend, especially in the first half.
Well, I think when you, I mean, I'm not a Benteke fan. Don't get me wrong at all. I'm really not a Benteke fan, but I think it all does, and it always sounds like I'm sort of beating Roy. And at the point that Roy was actually given a job after the woeful start we had under Frank de Boer, I just thought he wasn't my choice of manager because, in my opinion, Roy only ever sets these teams up, regardless of who you're playing, not to get beat. He doesn't set teams up to win. And I think that fundamental flaw is what's caused the problems over the past few years from an entertaining side of, things. Yes, we're going to get points on the board every year. We're going to stay up. That's apparent. We've always looked safe under Roy Hodgson. But with the people that are paying their money week in, week out to go and watch this, I'm going to say football, but that's being generous. When you're talking about it's the most entertaining league in the world, well, when you set a team up not to get beat, unfortunately, the entertainment side of it, we're not important as a...
But Steve, I'm going to cut across you there. Listen, first half, though, don't you think we attacked Man City? Well, I've just given you the
100%.
stats of the shots on
100%.
target. So that's not boring football, is it?
No, on this occasion, I would agree with you entirely. But did we set out our team not to get beat? Yes, we hit them on a counter-attack.
We're playing Manchester City. Tim?
One thing I will pick up on, and Jamie Chambers in the chat said, "Were we playing their second team?" And yeah, I mean that's possibly partly true. But then if you look at the Man City team, even the one that we played, how many of those would not get in the first team every week of every other Premier League team?
Absolutely. I've said this before. They got strength in depth in every single position. But you're spot on, Tim. Spot on.
But if you look at it, when we played up at City a couple of years ago, and we won 3-2, Starman scored that screamer. I'll never forget the commentator before the game started was comparing the squads, and they worked out that the subs on the City bench combined had a value greater than our starting 11, including Wilf, and our subs. That, again, to me, why the ESL should have gone through to try and get more equity in the league. But
well, thanks for reminding me about that day, because I was in the ground that day. That was just the most fabulous away day ever, you can imagine. And Peter Taylor, he doesn't know what he's talking about, because he was managing Dagenham and Redbridge that day, and I bumped into him at Manchester Piccadilly before the game, and he said, "You got no chance, have you, Palace, today?" And I had a selfie with him. We had a little bit of a joke, and I'd love to have seen him on the way back, because we had our winner's carriage on the way back, and it was just magnificent. Anyway, Nick, we've been keeping things going while you've been away. We just started talking about the game.
Do you know what's quite nice for me? Just sit back here and chill out. And that, ladies and gentlemen, because I have been away, is why we are changing platforms for the new season. More details will come later on, but hopefully we'll iron out any little technical issues that we just had. Okay, for the following season. And yes, we are coming back next season. So I don't know how far you got, but Roy Hodgson's sides had their chances in the first half through Christian Benteke, who flicked a header wide and had close range shot blocked by their keeper Edison. But once City had made their breakthrough, when Aguero had smashed high into net, quickly followed by Torres' precise finish, the result wasn't in doubt. After the game, now it's a question of when, not if, Pep Guardiola's side will be crowd champions, because I want to come on to what happened on the Sunday as well as our game. Okay. Will they be obviously they're going to be Liverpool going to be relinquishing their crown? Guardiola said we could start to put the champagne in the fridge, not to open it yet, but just to think about it. The Premier League is already there; it's in our hands. We need one more victory and 2 more points. So, I thought the first half, because I didn't hear what you guys were talking about. My personal thoughts on it: the first half, we matched them. Okay, 0-0, I think was a fair result. Okay, we had our opportunities. Yeah. They had their chances. It was a fair result. It was a completely different performance in the second half. And I think the result was a just result at 2-0. Ian, do you agree?
Yeah, I think so. I did say in your absence, Nick, that we had in the first half we had 6 shots, they had 5, and we had 2 on target, 1 each on corners. Second half, or the match state, the whole match stats, they had 20 shots, we had 9, we had 4 on target, they had 3. So, it wasn't terrible. It's not like some of the other games where we don't even get near the goal. I think you're right. I think the first half we played well. We were a tad fortunate, I suppose, to go in at 0-0, given they had 72% possession as well, which we haven't touched on. But we have always, against a team like City, we're always going to have minority possession, but you've got to have a little bit more than 28% to win a game of football, I think. I thought we defended very well. On last week's show, I said I want to see Tarek Mitchell in for PVA. Sure enough, Tarek Mitchell played, and I thought he played very, very well. There was one occasion when Sterling, I think, was weaving his way into the box, and he should have probably scored, but he took an extra touch, and Tarek got in there and blocked it, and he did brilliantly, actually. He did really, really well, the kid. And I hope he keeps the shirt now for the rest of the season.
It's interesting. Sorry, mate.
We also talked about Andros coming into the side. And, I think Jordan Ayew's played a lot of football. He always looks miserable, doesn't he, Jordan Ayew? Whether he's really miserable or just tired, I don't know. But I thought Andros deserved his chance, and I thought he did well. He created a few chances and made a little bit of a difference. So, I think first half, fine. And I think City probably had a rocket up their backsides at half time. I think, I said before, Pep not happy that they're 0-0, wants to win the game, and they've got world-class players all over the pitch. And you look at their bench thinking, well, if they do bring De Bruyne on or Gundogan or one of those, it's frightening, really. But you're right, I think 2-0, probably about right. And I wasn't overly disappointed at the end of the game. I didn't have social media. I thought, c'est la vie, so be it. Our season isn't defined on these results. Our season is defined on results like next Saturday against Sheffield United. So.
I have in front of me, guys, okay, and Tim, I'm going to come to you because I want to talk about a couple of the individual performances, and Ian's right to have touched on Mitchell and their overall player rating during the game. Aguero give you the starting figure was 8.25, so he was their man of the match, of course. Okay, Mitchell, however, and was 6.14, Eze 6.04, Guaita 5.5, Kouate 5.5, Townsend 5.5, and so on and so forth. But the ones I wanted to touch on in particular was Zaha under 5 and Jordan Ayew under 5. Talk to me about your feelings about our Mr. Zaha at the moment, Tim Richards in New Zealand.
I think his day is done. His importance to the club over the years can never be underestimated, and nor should it be. But I feel really sorry for the guy because I think purely it's down to he's been crushed by the current manager and coaching staff, as have most of the creative players that we've got in our team. And I hate seeing him like that. It's a spoiled brat on one hand, you could say. But then when you see what he thinks of the club, how he loves the club, and how you can see that he's been squashed by the current regime, I think he should go. I think definitely his day is done. He should be given a chance at a bigger club, but who's going to stump money up for him? I do think, though, some of it is his own making. I mean, he knows he's going to get fouled. He knows he's going to get treatment. He's been getting it for long enough. He's big enough and ugly enough now, I think, to be able to go, you know what? I mean, you look at Messi. Messi gets the same kind of treatment. He just picks himself up, plays the football and scores goals. And that's how you get back at these teams. So I'm a little tired of his tantrums, but I can understand it.
It's funny because the week before we were saying you actually played when he scored, he was playing with a smile on his face. I didn't see that same smile this week. And Steve, I want to talk to you. Paul Glancy just said in the chat, Mitchell was immense. Another Aaron Wan-Bissaka in the making. Compare the two.
Well, I've got my thoughts on Tarek Mitchell. I will say this, up until the Man City game, I actually thought of the comparison. I knew I was potentially coming on the show, and I was thinking this may be a question popped up. And I thought Aaron Wan-Bissaka, if memory serves me correctly, was his first game was against Manchester City, and then it was against Tottenham, and then against Manchester United. I think the first 3 games, or some at that level, the top teams. But Derrick Mitchell, I honestly believe there's no comparison. I think Wan-Bissaka is the reason he went for 50 million is because he is an absolutely world-class defender, in my opinion. Not brilliant at going forward, but brilliant at defending. Nobody gets past him. Sterling in his pocket every time he played City. Tarek Mitchell, up until the Man City game, I don't want to say I didn't rate him, but I do think that we're suspect in that position. I really did. But against Man City, actually, I looked and thought, you know what? He may be a slow starter again, like in his career, because he hasn't been playing that much, and he hasn't been playing for the first team for that long. Maybe he's just a slow starter. But actually, I did stand up and take note really against City, and I think with a few, hopefully, he will get a run of games between now and the end of the season. I think PVA bring a brilliant servant. I think, what was it, 16 million that we bought him for. I think his wages alone, I think he should be let go now. Although a very good defender, I think we need to start shaping up for the future. I think Tarek Mitchell is potentially part of that. But I do wonder, as the games go on, and is he going to be, the left-back version of Wan-Bissaka? I'm going to say the jury's out, but slightly in his favour now, just because of the Man City game. But I wouldn't say that I'm cautious with what I've seen so far.
Good stuff. I mean, boys, just to let you know, Nigel Croucher, who's has done an immense amount of work for me this evening because I've been working all day. Thank you, buddy. He just gave me a stat I wasn't aware of. Zaha has never scored against Man City, which was
didn't know that. Right.
No, great stat, Nige.
Mind you, Nick, Aguero had never scored at Selhurst Park.
So it's not only he was going to score. You could actually feel the commentators were wishing him
to score.
Of course they were. And of course, that's the last time we'll see Aguero at Selhurst Park, of course. And Nigel also says, who will want to buy Zaha with his attitude as it is at the moment?
I'm very disappointed in his attitude. I know on Saturday he was mouthing off. Someone put in the chat, actually, he was having a go at a member of staff. Steve Chandler. Zaha was moaning to a member of staff and looked upset before the game started. I'm not sure I noticed that, but he needs to have this coached out of him. I don't understand why Roy, just hasn't got hold of him and say, look, you do not moan. Someone kicks you, black and blue, doesn't matter. Get up and smile at them and let your football do the talking. He's so many times I've seen him and been frustrated by him, and it's such a shame because he's such a talent. He really is. And I think now, Tim, you make a point about him going to play for another club, but I can't see anyone wanting to buy him. Certainly not in England. Who would want to buy him in England? I really don't get that. Maybe Arsenal, I don't know, but I think we'll probably see him stay. That's what I think will happen.
Do you know what? I think on the note of Zaha, just quickly, you said earlier, about Messi and the treatment that he gets at Barcelona, but I think where the frustrations for Zaha, yes, he does come up. Well, he is a moaning, he throws his toys out of the pram, but I don't think it's all about what happens with other players on the pitch. I think it all stems from what he's told to do, in his position, what his instructions are on the field. I think I watched, funny enough, the playoff versus Watford was on the telly yesterday, which I watched. The passion for the club after the game when he was leaving to go to Manchester United was unbelievable. And you don't just lose that love for a club. And I honestly feel that because of Roy and the way he sets his teams up not to get beat, you're not putting Zaha in a position where he's going to flourish and he's going to do phenomenally well. Yes, he's been our star man, but could you imagine if he was playing under a manager that actually had an inkling of attacking in his, tactics?
Well, I hope that changes now, because if we do, I'd like to see Roy leave at the end of the season, like most of us would. Let's get someone else in. And if Wilf stays, let him have a go with the new manager. Let's see what happens then.
I said exactly to my boy the other day. I turned around and said, you know what I could potentially see happening is Roy leaving at the end of the season. I don't think anyone will buy Wilf because of, one, how much the board will want for him, and two, his wage demands. And if he wants Champions League football or even European football, the likes of Leicester or West Ham, Manchester United, Man City, they're not going to pay the money that we're going to want. And what's he still got, 3.5 years on his contract? So he's not going to go to clubs like that. But
Steve, you forgot to mention the other big Super League team, Tottenham Hotspur.
But I think hopefully, I wish Roy all the best. He's done a fabulous job by way of keeping us in the league, and he's got the board what they wanted on a shoestring budget, not spending a lot of money other than on wages and players that we've already got in the squad. He's kept us consistently in the Premier League. I think Roy's going to have to go upstairs, in my opinion, or leave, and with our best wishes for keeping us in the league. But I think with a manager, I would love to see someone like Steven Gerrard. A lot of people have slated me for that, but I think he's done well up at Rangers. Or Lampard. I know Lampard been touted. I would like to see that because of his youth connections. And his style of play won't be all out defence. I think there'll be some attacking element, and I think a fresh change will do Wilf good.
I think what we're going to do. Sorry, Tim, go on, mate.
No, I think, unfortunately, I think we're going to have a little bit of realism in that I think Roy should go and Frank Lampard should come in because of his expertise with youth. But we made a loss, what was it, 58 million last year? It's going to be worse this season. There's no real money to buy players. With the board we've got, they want to stay in the Premier League. Will they take that risk of changing the manager from someone who is almost guaranteed to keep us in?
Boys, I mean, you were talking about Roy just now, Steve. You do realise that tomorrow morning they're going to announce his new contract, don't it? Because you said that. Okay, moving upstairs. But anyway, I think what we'll do is we're going to draw a line on that. Ian, I want to talk to you, if you don't mind, about the Man United fans' protest, okay, at Old Trafford over the weekend. Can you ever see, first of all, I'd like your thoughts on the protest inside and outside the stadium, but can you see us doing something like that? Bearing in mind, we have got a history with it, with Lloyds Bank back in 2010.
Yeah, that was different. I was appalled, actually, when I saw my Man United fans. I really was. And I listened to 5 Live for quite a bit of the afternoon when the game was supposed to have been on. I was actually going to sit and watch it. I don't watch every Premier League game live, but I was going to watch that Sunday afternoon. And hang on, it's not started. What's going on? So I caught up with the news quite quickly. And I could not believe that many fans, call them fans, they're not really fans, had got inside the ground, onto the pitch, caused the damage they had, and got the game postponed. I was appalled by it, frankly. I think Manchester United should be ashamed and embarrassed by the supporters. I do think they should get dot points for it. You know, a game has been postponed. It's cost a lot of money for TV companies and everyone else around the world, not just in this country. And they're not proper Man United fans doing that, in my book. It's cost the club money, a lot of money.
Interesting. I'll tell you
I wouldn't counsel any side to do that, but they're culpable, Man United, because they allowed them to get in. It wasn't just 1 or 2; it was hundreds. So they got into a gate that was open. What are they thinking, leaving it open? I mean, it's crazy.
I also heard another side of that. They got into a gate that was open. You're quite right. Somebody opened that gate, and they're actually investigating it. Something that did make me laugh on Twitter this morning that I did see. Somebody tweeted, "You'd think a train guard at Euston would have seen all that amount of Man United fans boarding a train to go to Old And it did make me laugh. It did make me laugh.
Just on that as well, apologies to cut you off, but I think what also has to be mentioned as well is not only were sort of the protests were supposedly peaceful, but when you hear reports of a policeman's eye socket being smashed to bits and face slashed, I think it's an absolute disgrace. It's, what you go to work thinking you're policing a behind closed doors game, in effect, and that happens. Nobody should go to work and think that that's going to happen to them, even in the police force. I think for that alone, I think consequences should be made, and punishments be made severely.
Yeah, definitely.
But and you're right, and I completely agree with everything you guys have just said. But if you look at what happened with the Super League, the teams that are involved in that, all of the team. I mean, we were crying out for it 2 weeks ago. What punishment are they going to get? Nothing's happened.
The difference, Nick, the difference is the other protests were outside the ground.
Yeah.
They weren't violent in any way. Man United fans crossed the line at the weekend, and that was the problem. It really was. I think
the Chelsea Leeds game, there was apparently 2,000 people that were supposed to be there for that protest, and about an hour before kickoff, or a couple of hours before kickoff, I looked at the Sky Sports news, and it was like there was a handful of people. It's like, how the hell are 2,000 people going to turn up? But then when a team bus turns up, there was, there could have been at least that. But that was a peaceful protest. They made their points. To break into a football stadium, and sorry, Tim, I know you put your hand up a second ago, but yeah, it's disgraceful.
Tim?
the thing is that it's completely pointless. I understand the reasons for the protest, but it's different to wanting to protest to get a manager change to wanting to get owners out of a multi-billion pounds club. And the only way you're going to get them out is if somebody else is going to come along and stump up even more billions of pounds to buy the club. And how many of those are there? So,
well, Arsenal might be.
And the sentiment, it's pointless.
I think the Glaziers thing was a smokescreen, to be honest with you. I think they were just looking for an outlet. They've been there, 16 years? Man United started not being as good as they were when Ferguson left. Simple. All right? No debate about that. Actually, someone else has said at the weekend, they're moaning about the fact Man United aren't winning things. Hang on, they're second in the Premier League. Second.
And 1 foot in the final of the Europa League.
Yeah, exactly. Any other club, it's a great season.
Ian Lyons is saying in the background, Ian, that the Glazers actually want £4 billion for Man United, allegedly.
Hey ho.
Obviously, without getting into it too much, obviously Man U is slightly different in regards to trying to buy them out because they're registered on the stock exchange, aren't they?